Hey there, island dreamers, locals, and anyone craving a slice of paradise. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to the Fun and Key West podcast, where the vibe is always laid back, the stories are salty, and the drinks, well, they're definitely frozen. I'm your host, Michelle O'Connor, your unofficial tour guide to the Conquered Public. Whether you're planning your first trip, your fifth trip, or you're just daydreaming about trading the cubicle for the ocean breeze, you are in the right place. Here's the deal. This podcast is your insider's guide to all things Key West. We're talking where to eat, hello, conch fritters and key lime pie, where to drink, spoiler alert, there will be rum, where to stay, and all the quirky, wonderful things that make Key West the one-of-a-kind paradise we all love. Plus, we'll keep you up to date on the latest happenings, festivals, events, maybe even the occasional Hemingway lookalike sighting. And just to keep things spicy, we'll be bringing on some amazing guests now and then, locals, business owners, and people who know the island like the back of their sandy hand. So grab your flip-flops, pour yourself a cold one, and let's escape to the island state of mind together, whether you're tuning in from your hammock or your commute, while wishing it was a hammock. We've got all the Key West goodness coming your way. Thanks for being here. It's going to be a lot of fun in Key West. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Historic Marker Monday. Hey there, history buffs and the history curious. I'm Michelle with Fun in Key West, and today I'm taking you to a spot you've probably walked by 100 times without blinking. You know that long, hot line at the southernmost point buoy? You're fanning yourself, you're questionably regretting your outfit choices, and you're waiting for the photo op. But just a few steps away sits a tiny concrete building that quietly revolutionized global communication. That's right, folks. Today we're uncovering the fascinating history of the cable hut, Key West's unsung hero of the early 20th century. This little hut was the protector of undersea cables that kept Key West and Cuba connected. And, oh, by the way, we'll talk about the first international phone call. Because, yep, it happened right there in Key West. Grab your iced coffee, channel your inner history nerd, and get ready to see the southernmost point in a whole new light. Happy Historic Marker Monday, everybody. I am Michelle with Fun in Key West, and I am so glad that you're here. Every Monday, you know that we find an historic marker in Key West and we talk about it. This one, I bet you didn't even know that it was there. You have probably stood in line at a long line at the southernmost point for your photo, for that photo op, to prove to everybody you were in Key West at the southernmost point. And maybe you're fanning yourself because it's hot, it's July, August, and it's the Florida heat. But did you know, just steps away from that famous buoy sits a small concrete building that changed the way the world connected, and most people have no idea that it's there. Like I said, it's Historic Marker Monday. And here on the Fun in Key West podcast, today we're talking all about a true hidden gem of technology history. That would be the cable hut. Raise your hand if you stood by that thing for I don't know how many times and didn't realize the significance of that little tiny, unassuming concrete hut. But let me set the stage for you. Here's the scene. Key West is the early 1900s, and it's a bustling seaport, and you've got a railroad terminus thanks to Henry Flagler's Overseas Railroad. And it is the U.S.'s closest point to Havana. I mean, it's just 90 miles away. And it's the perfect location for international communication with Cuba and beyond. But we needed, at that time, speed and reliability for the communication. And it mattered because of commerce, the naval operations that were going on, and of course, the government connections. So, in 1917, they built on the mainland the cable hut. It was transported down to Key West by train on Henry Flagler's Railroad, And that was a logistical feat unto itself. This is a concrete structure. They erected and put the cable hut in Key West in 1917, but it was brought down on the railroad, this entire cable hut, all out of concrete. So think about the logistics of getting that down. It's installed at the southernmost point, and the purpose of this building is to protect the landline system from Key West. And there was a 125-mile underwater telegraph cable to Havana, Cuba. And the sole purpose of this building was to protect that connection. And you can almost think of it as the server room of its time. Without it, messages could not flow securely between the U.S. and Cuba. But the structure helped protect those connections from rain and the salt water and all of the elements that happen outside. But here's the really cool thing is the first international phone call was made on Christmas Day in 1900. And it happened a few years, I get it, and we're going backwards a little bit in time. It happened a few years before the hut was built, but it was all through the similar cables. So on December 25th, 1900, John W. Atkins made the first international phone call from Key West to Cuba. After a long silence, Cuba answered, and they said, "I don't understand you." Well, so the first international phone call didn't go great. It ended maybe like some bad dates or something. It's made history. And that's why that cable hut became so important, is to secure those lines so that those communications could remain open. These cables were the lifeline for the international communication. This was decades before satellites, cell towers, or the internet. I mean, if you just think about this is 1900, and they needed these lines to have communications. And this cable hut's job was to protect those lines and those connections from, like I said, all that salt air, corrosion, the harsh weather, any accidental physical damage. This also allowed Key West to be a hub for business and government and for naval communication with Cuba and then also the rest of the Caribbean. The cable hut was maintained and repaired by Western Union for decades. And cable ships, including the CS Western Union, built in 1939, were used to lay and service these lines. The Key West-Cuba cable connection remained in use until around 1987, so for almost over 87, almost 100 years, when it was finally retired due to the damage, and at that point in time, there was advancing technology. But today, as you're standing in line waiting for the perfect photo opportunity at the southernmost buoy, you can see the cable hut. It still sits there today by the southernmost point, and most visitors just walk by it and think it's nothing or think it's just there for storage or something. But this is actually a monument to the dawn of global communication. It reminds us that the idea of speaking to someone instantly across the ocean was once mind-blowing technology, if you think about it. So the next time you're in Key West, I want you to stop by and just check out the cable hut. Get your photo, but maybe after your photo, check out the cable hut, or while you're standing in line, cable hut. And think about that cable hut protected those lines that served between Key West and Cuba for almost 90 years. I always thank you guys for stopping in, checking in on the history and these historic markers in Key West. As you're wandering around Key West and you see these markers, be sure to read them, check them out. Begin to understand the history of Key West, how it was built, those founding fathers and mothers that really made Key West what it is today, and why we enjoy being there so much. There's always a story behind the house, behind the marker, behind the spot that it's marking. So be sure to check that out. If you want more information about these historic markers, be sure to head over to FunInKeyWest.com. Got a whole lot of information over there. It's a self-guided tour, and you can check that out. But while you're there and you want to get a little bit more into Key West and you're on the literary side, be sure to check out our book club. We have a lot of exciting things happening. We're going to start up on monthly calls to talk about books. And I'm going to start having some authors on that are going to be talking about their books, and you can ask them questions. And also, we're going to be checking out and previewing and exploring some new authors that have Key West connections. So be sure to check out the book club over there. I am Michelle with Fun in Key West. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. And that's a wrap on Historic Marker Monday. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It's always a blast uncovering Key West's hidden gems together. Who knew that little unassuming cable hut by the southernmost point held such a game-changing place in global communication history? Next time you're sweating it out in line for your buoy selfie, take a moment to appreciate the tiny building that once kept international calls buzzing across the ocean. Okay, here's your takeaway cheat sheet for impressing your friends later. The cable hut was a 1917 concrete masterpiece tasked with protecting the underwater cables that kept Key West and Cuba connected. And it was the location, not necessarily the cable hut, but Key West is the location for the first international call. So history was made on Christmas Day, 1900, with a hilarious, awkward response of, "I don't understand you" moment. And of course, the big picture is the hut may be small, but it reminds us just how a giant leap forward global communication was in that day. Now, for all my fellow history and book lovers, here's where things get really fun. If stories like this make you want to dig a little deeper, head over to FunInKeyWest.com and join the book club. There, we explore books that have a Key West connection. It could be the author, it could be the story, but it always has something to do with the Florida Keys and Key West. I'm also going to give you an action plan outside of signing up for that book club. Like this episode, if you love blending Key West vibes with time-traveling history lessons, share it with your travel buddy who always talks through the history tour. And tell me about your favorite Key West historic marker. Or tell me you've stood by the cable hut without even knowing what it was. This is a safe place, I promise. And don't forget, the podcast doesn't stop here. Check out our website at FunInKeyWest.com for self-guided historic walking tours, book club updates, and all the resources to plan your dream trip by the side of history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep reading, and always keep it Key Westy.